Welcome to the channel. My job site miter saw and stand have been a frustration of mine for far too long, but thankfully part of the Home Depot's Perspective program this quarter, I got to check out the Milwaukee M18 Fuel 12-inch sliding miter saw, and it's been an unbelievable upgrade that we'll talk about more throughout the video. But there was no better time than now to go ahead and make some nice miter saw wings for the job site that's drastically going to improve my efficiency and just overall ease of use with the stand. Believe me, you can waste some time in a hurry coming up with a bunch of fancy and elaborate ideas for attaching these wings to your saw or base, but finally I just had to pick this simple idea and run with it, which is just some aluminum angle bolted to the saw that the wings can sit directly on, and then we'll lock the actual wings in place later with some knobs. I like this route because it's a clean look that doesn't hinder anything for just quick small jobs where I don't even need to set the wings up. Having two threaded holes on this saw for the extension handles made this really easy. Most saws I've seen either have just one hole or none at all. But since I got it figured out at least far enough off camera to know it was going to work, I could go ahead and make a second one for the other side. You can easily cut aluminum with your regular saws. I just definitely like to put on an old or cheap blade. Just want to point out here on the table saw I'm able to cut such a small piece off because I have a zero clearance insert around my blade. Definitely wouldn't want this sliver falling down in the big gap in a stock throat plate. This block of wood I'm drilling through here to add the holes to the aluminum is one of my first ideas using these little cleats I've had laying around. It was a good idea, there was just way too much slop in them, so then I tried traditional French cleats out of wood, but you still need some sort of pin or bolt to keep them solid. Did I mention how big of a rabbit hole you can go down trying different ideas here? Now that the attachment points were done, I could actually start building the wings. I'm using 3/4 inch maple plywood. I need the 3/4 inch thickness for the dog holes that I'd be adding and to recess the T-track. I didn't go overly big with these to keep the weight down, so after adding the 3/4 inch trim all the way around, the overall size is 13.5 inches deep by just over 6 feet long. You can cut up to a 2x14 with a Milwaukee saw, so this was a good opportunity to check the accuracy with the head extended that far out. Now a major factor in this is proper arm and body control, but of course the saw does play a big role in how accurate these cuts are. Unfortunately, after a tragic drop, my 12-inch square is no longer actually square, but with this 8-inch you can see it's bang on perfect from both directions. It's just a really tight saw. I don't mean sliding wise, it slides like butter, but tight as in side to side wiggle. It's really stout and well built. And speaking of build quality, my old saw, which is also a 12-inch slider, was 64 pounds, and this Milwaukee is only 47, a staggering 17 pounds lighter, but yet the build quality seems better. That's just crazy to me, and losing that much weight is a huge benefit. Of course, you do have to add some weight back to that for a battery, but that's only a couple pounds and gets me one huge step closer to a cordless job site. Once the panels were cut to size and notched, next I trimmed around the whole thing with some 3/4 inch thick maple. All the pieces were 2.5 inches wide, except for the pieces that sit on those brackets on the saw. I ripped those down and crept up on the sides to where they were just below the bed of the saw. We're about done using the saw for this project, so I just want to go ahead and point out a couple other features that I really like. One is the LED shadow cut line. After using saws with the shadow line, I don't think I could ever go back to a laser or saw without one. You just can't beat seeing exactly where the blade is going to cut in a way that can't become misaligned. The miter detent plate is also really nice with no slop whatsoever in any of the common degree detents. And being stainless steel, it won't loosen up like some saws with aluminum plates. If you can't tell, I'm really excited about this upgrade, so thanks again to the Home Depot for being a great supporter of the channel, and be sure to check out the link in the video description to check the saw out more. After gluing and brad nailing the trim on, all I had to do was drill out these areas so they could pull tight to the saw around those bolt heads. To To lock these wings in place, I'm using some knobs from underneath, but to push the knobs further away from the saw, I just needed to add some blocking that I could then put the threaded inserts in. After getting the wings squared to the saw exactly where I wanted them to be, I could then pre-drill a small pilot hole through the aluminum angle into the wings. This takes the guesswork out and ensures all the holes mate perfectly. Hard to film under there, but here you get the gist. Next, I wanted to make the wings a lot more solid by adding legs. There's just a ton of flex in this miter stand itself, and these will help a ton. Also, that's the reason for attaching the wings directly to the saw and not my stand. I'm not sold on keeping this stand and may try out a different one, but since the wings mount directly to the saw, it really doesn't matter what stand I use. But these are just some of the cheap roller support stands that after a little customization work great and add a lot of stability to the whole setup. Next, I wanted to lay out and drill dowel holes to use as alignment pins and hold the two sides together. But then I realized I better go ahead and hit the edges with an 1/8 inch roundover bit before I had the dowel sticking in my way. After getting the holes drilled in the first wing, I went ahead and glued the dowels into that one so the glue could start drying. The dowels are a really snug fit, so on the second wing I went through and widened the holes just a bit to make it easier to put together and take apart. The section with the smaller trim pieces that sit on the bracket give a nice opening to get your hands in and pull the two sides apart. You gotta love those unplanned but awesome features. Even though the dowels are a nice snug fit, I went ahead and added some of these sash locks to make sure they stay together, as well as a handle to make them easier to carry. Here I'm using a Freud 3/4 inch mortising bit to create a groove for some T-track to sit in to use with a crown stop jig that we'll make later in the video. Then switching over to a 1/2 inch bit, this next groove is to recess a steel tape measure, just in time for the camera to tip over. But it goes to show how much extra time these videos do take to make, because I had to stop and get at least 2 more camera angles of the same task anyways. I have this same system here in the shop where I first put in some magnetic tape and then the steel tape measure just goes on top of that. I've had this for years and it's held up flawlessly and allows you to pull up and adjust the tape measure if needed. I haven't had to in the shop at all, but I'm sure it's definitely going to pay off on this mobile setup. I like this stop block I made for in the shop, and the cabinets are long enough I can just yeet it down to the end and get it out of the way if I need, but on something like these wings where I'm cutting long 12 or 16 foot long trim, it's better for the stop block to just flip up out of the way. So for this stop block I just screwed some more of the T-track on the back flush with the top. There's really no need to have a fence sticking up all along the back. By having it flush with the surface, it just adds more versatility and allows a flat work surface. Next I could lay out and drill some 3/4 inch dog holes all along both pieces. I went with a 4 inch spacing center to center. This not only takes out some of the weight, but again offers more versatility for clamping down pieces for routing, edge banding plywood pieces, just all sorts of options with the dog hole accessories. After getting all the holes drilled and hitting them with a slight 1/16 inch roundover bit, I could add some of these super strong rare earth magnets to keep the legs in place. I also added some for the knobs stuck right where I need them for when I reach underneath for the threaded inserts, as well as some other jigs stored away as well. With the wings attached to the saw, now I could get the steel tape measure set in place on the magnet. Since I have a fresh zero clearance insert on the saw, it was real easy to just line it up perfectly with the blade. Quick little test cut and it's right where it should be. And with the way I have the wings attached to the saw, it has stayed perfect so far every time I set it up. The last jig I wanted to make for this video is a crown stop utilizing those T-tracks I put in earlier. I 100% prefer to cut my crown molding nested, and this jig just makes it easy to set up once so your material is resting at the right angle. Just drop your material in and make your straight or miter cuts without ever having to bevel the saw. I'm sure I'll come up with more ideas and changes as I use them, but I couldn't be happier with this whole setup. Hopefully you enjoyed the process and can put something you saw to use in your work. Be sure to check out the links in the video description, and you guys know the deal. Giving the video a thumbs up and subscribing if you're not already really does help out the channel. Until next time, take care.